50. All right, everyone, welcome. It's 10:50, so I believe we'll get started. I am Dr. Elizabeth Gantu, but I go by Liz. And shortly, we will have some amazing panelists and colleagues that I have in the Maricopa Community Colleges to get us started. I know that Dr. Carla Ganem is our sort of session facilitator or moderator for today, I should say. So if for some reason we get lost in our talking points, please feel free to let us know in the chat or maybe get her attention. She has all permission to let us know that we need to pay attention beyond what we're saying. We're so excited to have you all here for lessons learned through Maricopa Community College District OER models. I will actually share that I'm really appreciative of my colleagues. We have an OER steering committee that we meet at across our district, right? Maricopa Community Colleges have 10 colleges and a district office. And we have some of our leaders here, actually. Stephanie is one of them. So this actually was something that came up in one of our OER steering committees as like, how can we learn more from each other? And then just like, what is happening in OER movements within either colleges or college systems so that we kind of can learn from each other. And so as a result of that, this session came to be. So today, one of the things that we'll start off is we'll kind of introduce ourselves. And then, like I said, I have some other colleagues that are panelists that will get an opportunity to not only introduce themselves, but give you a little bit of an aspect as to where they are. And then we'll have some chances to be doing some breakout room discussions. We really want this to not just be where you learn from us, but where you also maybe reflect a little bit, think about some action items that you can take either as an inspiration from something you've heard in the conference this last 2 days, or maybe even something that somebody is saying in the discussion board, in the discussion room that maybe inspire or give you some strategic ways that you can continue to really make this happen. Then we'd love to hear about what were some of those lessons learned, or what were some of those revelations, or what are still some questions. And then we will close, and that's how we will spend our time today. And as I mentioned, as people were coming in, if you could just maybe introduce yourself in the chat. I don't have it fully visibly in front of me right now. But if you can introduce yourself in the chat and also let us know your name, institution, and where do you feel you are? Are you kind of in the more beginner phase, kind of in the middle, or you're leading the way? You are an expert. You feel like your institution's really pioneering or making some significant strides in this important work. So with that, I'll get us off started. I already kind of introduced myself. I will share that I have been involved in the OER steering committee for about 2 years now. And I would say that our college has demonstrated that a lot of faculty are interested in using OER. There's been some faculty that have been using OER for more than 10 years. But we don't have like an institutional support system. Everything has been really like a faculty member has a desire to use OER, and they kind of trailblaze and or stumble across a process because we don't have like on our campus, we don't have necessarily like an identified group of people who are helping support faculty and or student affairs in using OER within their experiences with students or within their processes. And so I would say that we're really at the beginner phase. The fact that I've had the opportunity to join the district cohort or the district committee to really learn gives me a sense of we have a lot of work to do in this space. I will share we have an OER librarian identified, but it's not their just sole purpose. It's not just their charge. they are working it into all the other things that they're doing, where I know other colleges in our system do have someone who really is championing and supporting OER in a more full way, in a fuller, more maybe informed way. And so that is a little bit about where I feel I am. And so, as I said, this really came out of a conversation in one of our committee meetings. And somebody said, well, let's put in a panel and see what we can do and learn. And so looking forward to learning more from you all. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Sarah.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Sarah Storr, and I am a library faculty member at Rio Salado College. And I'll give you just a little background on Rio if you're not familiar with it. So we operate primarily online, although we do have a pretty significant dual enrollment population and adult ed population. But for our online courses, we use a one course, many sections model. Which means that most of our courses are developed centrally and then taught across multiple sections. So that's, I think, some important context for describing where we're at in terms of OER. So in my role as a librarian, I, of course, help faculty and course developers across the college locating OER. And like Liz mentioned at Estrella, this is just one aspect of my job as a library faculty member. We don't have a dedicated position that's, solely addressing OER at our college, but I do feel really fortunate that I've been in the district for 7 years now, and I feel like when I started at the Rio Library, I walked into a culture where there was a lot of OER knowledge within the library team. And there was also a lot of buy-in across the Rio faculty. And I think that's one of the, there are a lot of challenges with having a small cohort of faculty, but one of the benefits is that it's really easy to socialize an idea and to get buy-in. So I feel really fortunate in that I walked into a situation where folks were definitely interested in using OER, committed to finding ways to, get their students affordable access to course materials. So in that regard, I feel like, we're kind of at a place where I would say, we've got some experience, but there's room for improvement. About 18 months ago, I would say, our then VPAA, our Vice President of Academic Affairs, asked me to co-lead our college's textbook affordability task force. And so that was a group of us that came together to analyze and better consider the textbook affordability numbers really that we were seeing for our online courses primarily. And so as part of that work, we did a really comprehensive analysis of all of our course offerings. We identified which courses used OER. We looked at all of the enrollment data for those courses, and we found the textbook costs that were highest across the college. And we shared that information really widely with all of our faculty. And I think one of the things that I'm really proud of is that a number of faculty, use that information to make really meaningful changes. We had a couple of them adopt OpenStax course textbooks as a result of that initiative. So that's a thing that I'm really proud of that we've done recently. And I would say I think that Rio is probably at a place where other folks are in the district and probably around the state where we've got buy-in for sure. And we've got interest amongst our faculty, but we don't necessarily have a lot of bandwidth when it comes to creating our own OER. I would definitely describe Rio as primarily a consumer of OER, and I'd really love to see us move into a space where we're making more active contributions. But again, bandwidth is definitely an issue that we've got at our college. I also think that we could be doing more in terms of kind of raising awareness of how people can actually, adapt and modify the OER that they're using. I don't see that happening a lot at our college to, better reflect our community. So I'd like to see us doing more of that um, as well. So that's kind of where we're at Rio. And I'm really excited to be part of this discussion today and looking forward to learning more about where everyone is at. Who am I turning it over to, Liz?
Yeah, I was going to say, Sarah, thank you. I loved that you put that you feel you're at a consumer more than like maybe um leading the way, really helping. So I actually added that to the breakout room that you will lead. So thank you. Stephanie, you are next, and Stephanie is from Phoenix College.
Yes, hi. Thank you for joining us. I am full-time faculty at Phoenix College. I'm program director for food and nutrition. I'm in my 8th year as full-time faculty there. And I think, I was first introduced to OER, never heard of it until Matthew came out to our campus and talked to us one day. And then I got on the bandwagon after that, and there was no looking back. But at Phoenix College, we didn't have I'm going to speak in two different ways. I'm going to talk about my role at Phoenix College, and I'm also going to talk about my role as tri-chair at the institutional level. But at Phoenix College, we didn't have an OER committee, so we started that 5 years ago. We had a pretty good, well-rounded group. Some long-time users of OER had joined us, so we had a lot of experience to help us get going. There were some challenges in the beginning of getting it going. But, our interim vice president was very helpful in spearheading that and also provided with some budget. So that was really helpful to get us going, kind of grow that outreach at our college. We also did some institutional training one summer with our original members early on to help with a strategic plan and to provide us with some direction. Um, we have a variety. I know for me personally, I received one of our grants and worked on redesigning my entire course and building out a book along with my adjunct. And then from the institutional perspective, I've been functioning in the tri-chair role since fall of 22. Prior to that, I was a grant liaison. So I've been kind of looking at what's going on institutional wise across our 10 colleges for a little while now. And, we are engaged in so much work trying to accommodate the needs and get the word out. And it really takes a team. A lot of our roles overlap. Our model at Maricopa, we have a administrator from the district office, along with the official OER coordinator, and then the tri-chair. And we all overlap each other. We do or put on whatever hat we need to put on to get the job done in the time frame that it needs to get done. It's very collaborative, I would say. But it's a real challenge to try and keep the ball rolling and keep all the balls in the air and stay engaged with outreach and developing relationships with partners and participating on other committees and looking for grants and managing those grants and then supporting the faculty and then the strategic plan and how we're accomplishing our goals. Um, you know, and then of course there's data. We have to review the data and share that out and it's as well as managing publishing platforms and then professional development for our colleagues. And that's one ways I see a lot of adjuncts who jump on that professional development, especially over the summertime, I think. But that's kind of my background and where I'm coming from.
Thank you, Stephanie. I think one of the things that you really highlighted in your particular introduction and where you're at is the funding, that there was actually like that support, right, from your college administration to make that happen. And then how some of that has kind of also been part of the district office model too. So I appreciate, and it maybe a lot of it is the grant and the grant management, but that definitely people putting money to really champion a cause is always something that can help. Awesome. And now we've got Matthew at Scottsdale Community College.
Hello. Yeah, so I'm English faculty at Scottsdale Community College, but I'm also the OER faculty specialist there. So the thing about Scottsdale Community College well, actually, let me start with this. The thing that's exciting and challenging at the same time about working on OER in Maricopa is that, as you've probably noticed already, there are 10 different colleges. They're all separately accredited, and we have different cultures, and they have different levels of engagement and institutional support when it comes to open education and all kinds of other things as well. So one of the reasons why having that district-wide committee that Stephanie is a tri-chair of is one of the reasons why that's such an important thing, so that we can actually connect. But we do it about once a month, and even then we don't always know all the details about what's going on everywhere. But having said all of that, I'm looking forward to this discussion to learn more about kind of some of the challenges and experiences some of my other colleagues have had beyond what I already know. But I also think that I wanted to communicate that, Scottsdale Community College is, in some ways, like OER is kind of expected to be, it's kind of part of the institutional culture already in a way that I think, not to be like bragging or anything, it's just that we've been working on open education at Scottsdale Community College for there were faculty champions for OER going back 20 years. We had people in our math department who were actively involved in helping to develop content for My Open Math, back in the aughts and whatnot. And then, of course, we've got people like Lisa Young, who's here as a attendee, but she's the faculty administrator for OER at Maricopa. But she used to be the CTL director at Scottsdale, still SCP faculty. And, the early work that she and others had done on our campus really kind of got open educational resources on the radar for a lot of faculty, and even for myself in my first couple of years back in like 2013, 10, 11 years ago. Some of the professional development that was offered, it wasn't like we had an official committee or anything, but there were still discussions about it. And actually, it wasn't that much longer before we had an official committee. I think that our official OER committee started probably around 2013, 2014, something like that. And around 2018, I believe, we were able to kind of formalize a kind of a standardized budget with our vice president of academic affairs. And so since 2018, we've had we've always had a lot of support from administration, but since 2018, we've had support to provide faculty stipends for content development, for professional development, for maybe some small events and things like that. And there was a period of time where our administration actually also supported the hiring of OER student workers. And so the whole thing was designed so that we could, and also, like I said, I have the role of faculty specialist, and that is also compensated by reassigned time, or by a stipend. So we have a lot of administrative support, and fingers crossed, there's budget situations happening, but we know that at least for next year, we're still going to be supported. So, we feel like it seems at first glance maybe like we've got everything under control, and it's like Scottsdale Community College just like figured it all out, but that's not really the case. We have had a lot of challenges. One of the reasons why we had student workers and we don't now is because we were having trouble figuring out the best practices for really utilizing them and also training them and using them in a quick enough period of time before they cycled out of their time at a two-year college. And then also we had attempted to with some success, develop some zero textbook cost degree pathways, but there were a few obstacles to that really growing. And eventually our committee decided to kind of re-strategize and kind of just focus on individual faculty and trying to maximize the overall use of OER versus having dedicated pathways because of some of the obstacles that we weren't able to figure out. So I know that's a ton of information, and the only other thing that I'll say is just to reiterate that, you know, while we have a very entrenched, supportive OER culture at our college, it's kind of like an expected mode of operation. Along with that comes with this kind of additional anxiety, especially for me, who's like I'm the co-chair of the OER committee at our college and the OER specialist. The anxiety that comes along with that is that I sense there's like complacency among faculty, even those who are very, even those who use it, those who in the past have done OER development and stuff like that. It's kind of like, okay, well, it's almost like there's a sense of like, okay, that's done, when it isn't done, because there's constantly, you know, some new issue or some new challenge that arises. And then, so like, I think that where we're at right now is trying to figure out a way to kind of like re-engage faculty, to re-energize them about open education, because a lot of the practitioners are just practitioners and that's fine. But I don't feel like we are really growing or evolving that much anymore. And so it's kind of a stagnation, and not to commit the fallacy of perpetual growth like the corporate world has. You know, it's not like we necessarily need to constantly be growing in our OER. It could be that we've reached a point where we've got enough people using it that we feel confident that we're doing the best thing for our students. But there is a sense that there is some energy lost there, especially when, you know, if you think about, you know, 5 years ago, if I had reached out to faculty and asked them to, you know, to complete a survey about open educational resources or something, you know, maybe we would have had a lot of people respond. Or if I would have offered a workshop 5 years ago, maybe a lot of people would have come. But now there are relatively few people who actually express interest in that. And in large part, I think, because everybody already knows about it, and those who are interested in it are doing it, and those who aren't. And the only real option for growth that we have these days seems like new faculty. So yeah, that's where we're at, kind of like, you know, towards the, you know, established initiative end of the spectrum.
Thank you, Matthew. I love that you kind of offer this perspective of kind of part of the institutional culture, but then the also challenge of then how do you help people not feel that there's a saturation point. And so before we kind of get into breakout rooms, I wanted to know if anyone has any immediate questions for us as panelists. There will be an opportunity for us to kind of engage. There will be an activity and a little worksheet that we invite you all to perhaps work in. Just a note that that is on purpose, that link in the chat. I'll also put a QR code if you prefer that. I just want to make sure that you have the activity that we're going to be due. But does anyone have any immediate questions for us? Things that you would like us to maybe further clarify? We have still about 7 minutes of the panel part, and so I want to make sure that we have that opportunity to kind of, as a community here, be able to ask her.
I have a question. You a couple of you mentioned how you know, you have like maybe a meeting between campuses every month, and what kind of things do you address there, I guess? And I'm saying that because, you know, I'm at Pima and we have a little different model where we're one college. I have struggled to get a committee together because I'm just the only one. And so taking tips on like what have you found to keep the, you know, your folks together, or like it's useful time. Yeah. Or
Well, Chelsea, that's a great question, and I'll let my colleagues here also chime in. But some of the breakout room activity is actually some of the things that we do. And this is again, individuals like Stephanie, Lisa, and Debbie Baker, as well as Matthew and Sarah, who were all a part of this committee. Sometimes it's a matter of like, what's working, what isn't, like what kind of institutional support do we need? How do we work through these challenges? So we modeled a lot of our activity based on what we can sometimes do within us meeting as a committee, as a district, right? Stephanie, Sarah, Matthew, anything else you'd like to chime in?
Yeah, I'll just mention, I I failed to mention earlier about, with the leadership structure that we also have an OER steering committee. In the past, we've had representation from all of the colleges, and we've had support from various campus presidents. So that's one way that we get the information out. We meet once a month, and that's probably what Matthew might have been referring to. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but we then that information from the sharing committee, those members share that out with their campus to if they have a if they have an OER committee, then it would get shared there, and then from the OER committee on the campus, and it would get shared out to the faculty and that way. So it's kind of that structure is how we have it set up.
Yeah, that was kind of what I was going to say. I was also going to say that one of the things, and it kind of has fluctuated through time, but for a while, like Stephanie said, we were very much trying to make sure that we had kind of a diverse representation on the OER steering committee. So faculty as well as staff, and making sure that there was librarians, making sure that we had an administrator, and even potentially trying to bring students into it too, if possible. It's not always, I don't know that we were often very successful with that, but it was certainly our interest. And I think that one of the things that the reasons why that's so important is because when you're bringing a diverse group of stakeholders together like that, especially when you have a massive 10 college system like that, then you hear a lot of different perspectives on how these things are going to work. So it's not just from faculty and librarians, but you also have administrators and everyone else. So yeah, that's pretty much what I would say.
And I think, Chelsea, the opportunity is also, there's definitely all these other components that make OER happen at our institutions, like at least at our college, our scheduling team really helps to sort of identify which are the low-cost textbooks, zero-cost textbooks, or OER. And we sometimes review the data within the meetings as well to say, does this actually seem to be a representation of what you as kind of the OER reps know on your campus? And that's how we have found some inconsistencies. And then, of course, it's kind of going back to our colleges to identify how do we, really tighten this work so that we are not only capturing the data, but more importantly, that our students know that when they're signing up for a class, it is a zero textbook cost or low textbook cost or OER class. And so I think that that's part of it's. Some of it is working through things. Sometimes it's a very much working meetings of how do we learn from each other and then go back to our colleges to recommend how do we tighten the processes to really support this within our college, but then that has massive impact right across the district as well. Any other questions? We appreciate your question. Thank you, Chelsea. Other questions for now? If not, as I mentioned, let me display this again. So you have a QR code. I hope that QR code works. I believe I took off all the Maricopa, you need to sign in and authenticate. And if I didn't, I apologize. The link, though, is also in the chat. So that will actually make a copy for you so that you can brainstorm, reflect, think about, take notes. And so we want to make sure, like I said, that this gives you an opportunity to reflect and think about, and then in community in our breakout rooms, maybe discuss some of the learning. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. Did everyone get at least the QR code or the link in the chat? If not, I can paste it again. Maybe just like a yay or no, or thumbs up or thumbs down. Okay, looks like the copy is working for non-Maricopa. Thank you, Cheryl. I appreciate you verifying that. So with that, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and open the breakout room. So we as panelists will all lead one of the breakout rooms. For those of you hosts that are recording, you are welcome to pause this since we don't really capture fully what is happening in the breakout rooms. And then maybe we could come back to lessons learned and we can capture some of that. But with that, you'll see you can pick your breakout room. And if you have any questions, I'll hold back. The idea here is, do you want to join you're more at the beginning phase? There's a lot of sole contributors. You need an institutional process. That's more my area. Sarah, librarian, more consumer of OER. Stephanie, mid funded work. She's also one of the district tri-chairs of this important work. And then Matthew kind of leading the way, part of his institutional culture. Scottsdale's institutional culture, and then also dealing with some challenges that come with that. So feel free to join the room that you'd like. I see people are starting to trickle in. All right, everyone. So welcome back. I will share. So I was the beginner sole contributor, need institutional processes. I'm so glad no one was in that breakout room, which means that we are all making some strides and we're all at a better place. But that allowed me to then go around and hear some of the discussions in my colleagues' breakout rooms. And there was some really great conversations that were shared. And so this is our time. I'd love to hear from anybody, either things that you learned, things that questions that you still have that we can maybe discuss as a collective here. Anyone want to get us started?
I can. And we get, I was going to bring this up in the group, but after listening to everybody, and we were talking a lot about like grassroots efforts and buy-in from faculty versus kind of administrators. And at PIMA we have a lot of buy-in from faculty to do the work. We don't have any kind of funding for faculty. And I was just thinking, actually, when Matthew was talking, maybe that's where that, the grassroots, maybe I can get faculty together to say, hey, we want funding to be able to do this, right? Because we don't have any funding. And I keep trying to, for me, talking to admin, like, hey, if we want faculty to be using OER more, they're willing, they just don't have the time. It's a lot of work, right? And so, but maybe there's a grassroots effort not to use OER, but to get faculty or to get admin to put some money towards it too, or professional development, or some kind of a thing. So I was just kind of reflecting on that as we were leaving.
Yeah, thank you, Chelsea. I think that's so important. And not only is it obviously nice because, right, people are busy, as you said, but then I think it shows that kind of institutional, that your administration is championing this, so it must be important. And it starts to really send that message. And it's the beginning, right? Once you have a cohort of people or a few people, then it starts to be a movement, right? That can really bring positive impact. Other revelations, questions, thoughts? Got about 4 more minutes, and so I know that I want to, obviously be respectful of time. So as I mentioned, the link that we shared, that are just some things. Maybe that's something that you filled out, or maybe it's something you want to, after today's conference, maybe bring back to a working meeting, or maybe bring back to your administration and say, hey, how can we make at least one thing happen, in the near future? These are our wins in terms of where we're at, and like, this is where we want to go. That can also be just really good ways to really spur discussion and get people involved in not just the decision making, but more so, it's like I always think about how at the end of the day, it's not about us, right? It's about our students and the communities we serve. And OER, as I heard Stephanie mention in her breakout room, there's so much research that really shows how the more that we can support students in eliminating barriers like textbook cost or even, instructional costs for them, it really, really helps us to champion the reason why we're in this business, right? Which is to help our students transform their lives, learn so that they can continue to do the wonderful things that they want to do in our world. And so with that, unless anyone has any other questions, I welcome you in the chat to maybe provide a little bit of feedback. It's informal. I wasn't 100% sure if we would get any feedback from our attendees in any particular survey or specific way. But just if you still have any questions or maybe things that you would have liked to have seen happen, that feedback is also good in helping us to continue to see how we can continuously improve. And if you have any also feedback, I would like to personally thank Matthew, Sarah, and Stephanie for going on this journey with me, and for our OER steering committee who kind of said, you have an idea, let's make it happen. And the venue for all the conference organizers, I know Chelsea, you are a part of that. Thank you for providing this space for us to be able to share and also learn from each other.
Thank you to all of you. You're wonderful. I can vouch for that since I am in the Maricopa Community College system and I do sit on the steering committee, and I know you all do wonderful work and we appreciate you all. I hope you all had a wonderful session, and please continue putting any feedback or questions you have for Liz and her colleagues in the chat. You have one more minute before I have to hard end this, but I just wanted to wish you all a wonderful lunch break, which is coming up. And please come back at 12:30 for the panel, the social justice panel. And we'll see you there. Thank you all. And I will stop the recording too.
Be well, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.